I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
E onde?
See, you're gonna come through Hollywood and Hollywood.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
Something about engines calms me down.
For those 10 seconds or less, I'm free.
The Fast and the Furious.
If I had to choose one historical date from the year 2001 that is also a multiple of 11 and is still having a major effect on the world and the lives of billions of people to this day, I'd be hard-pressed to think of one more important than June 22nd, 2001. The release of the first Fast and Furious film was not only easily the best and most culturally significant day of 2001, but it was also an important moment in cinema history. What most people mistook as a dumb, loud movie for guys who spend what was supposed to be their child support checks upgrading their 2003 Saturn Ion in hopes to conquer the Casper, Wyoming street racing scene actually held secret meaning and hidden filmmaking genius well beyond the comprehension of most people. You probably think I'm joking, but I'm actually dead fucking serious. The Fast and the Furious was the brainchild of director Rob Cohen and late actor Paul Walker, after Cohen asked Walker if he had any ideas for movies to make, and the Tammy and the T-Rex star thought on it and said that he wanted to make a movie where he could be a cop and a race car driver, because Paul Walker had the brain of a 6-year-old and God bless him for that. So the team got to work making little Paul Walker's dream come true. It was to be a film about an undercover cop infiltrating a gang of street racing adrenaline junkies who pull off dangerous heists under the command of their eccentric and dangerous leader, only for our hero to get too attached to the gang and question his loyalties and, hey, why are you playing Point Break footage over this? I'm not talking about Point Break. A lot of people throw around the term lightning in a bottle, but how else could you possibly describe a movie that not only was directed by Rob Cohen, but also had Paul Walker and vehicle identification number Diesel in the driver's seat? Everything from the aggressive early 2000s soundtrack featuring nu metal and techno drum and bass to its style, cinematography, overall attitude, it just clicked. Like a seatbelt. This film has often been credited with introducing millions of people to cars as a way of expressing themselves, a hobby, a new purpose for their child support checks. It was like Top Gun, but for Valvoline. And as is per usual around here, the rest of Film Analysis YouTube is too afraid to touch this movie. They aren't ready for this challenge. They aren't ready to talk about a movie that people actually like. I wasn't ready for a while either. I used to hate this movie. I thought it was just a bunch of bullshit with no point. But they say that if you stare into the abyss for long enough, the abyss stares back. And after staring into the eyes of the abyss for long enough, I think I've finally been able to draw a map of their eyes. Now, I can finally stop getting lost in them. The Fast and the Furious is the tale of Brian O'Connor, the worst undercover cop of all time, and how he helped Panasonic lose over $6 million in 2001. On a first-time viewing of this movie, it can come off as a bit meandering, pointless, and weird. It's basically a ripoff of Point Break, but with somehow even more homoerotic undertones. It's not exactly the gayest movie. I mean, you can still watch guys spit shine each other's asses on the internet, so this isn't really anything to write home about, if you typically only write home about the gay porn you saw recently. But the love that Brian and Dominic Toretto develop for each other is nothing short of beautiful. Also, his name is literally Dom. I mean, come on, that's gay as hell. The plot is essentially, Brian befriends the Toretto family and falls in love with them, all the while he's supposed to be investigating the street racing scene to find out who's been shooting semi-truck drivers with harpoons to steal $6 million worth of Panasonic DVD players. Obviously, it ends up being them. Now, I say he's trying to crack the case, but really he's kind of just smashing Coronas and eating barbecue chicken. This is a classic cop movie where the angry chief police has a point. He is a loose cannon and he does play by his own rules. Check it out, it's like this looking ass.
So check it out, it's like this.
Brian's laid-back approach to the law puts me in an awkward position. On the one hand, I hate the institution of the police, and the more time Brian spends street racing, the safer the community becomes, as he's not out there shooting unarmed civilians. It's like when you see those videos of cops doing kickflips, it's like, yeah, maybe y'all just ride skateboards from now on. But on the other hand, from a story perspective, I have to wonder why Brian even joined the LAPD at all if he has no intention of shooting unarmed civilians. He's passionate about cars, he's a solid mechanic, a talented racer. He could have just as easily gone into a car-related profession and likely been extremely successful. Usually these undercover cops become friends with their mark type movies have some sort of very explicit conflict where the undercover cop has to make a choice between their duty and their new friendship. Both 21 Jump Street movies do this, Point Break does this, I assume the Point Break remake does this, but I don't want to watch that. But The Fast and the Furious does not do this, because Brian doesn't have that internal struggle. It's not what this movie is about. It's about the corruption of Brian O'Connor. You see, Dom doesn't actually need to commit any of the crimes in this movie. You'd think it would be for a noble reason, family needs the money, they're donating it to charity, helping the impoverished or something, but no. In his own words, he does it merely for fun, pure love of the game. That's what makes Brian's ultimate decision at the end of this movie so goddamn interesting to me. Dom is nothing but a menace, endangering the lives of semi-truck drivers purely because he thinks it's cool. And that's one of the most interesting things about this movie to me. Especially the fact that nobody ever brings this up in the universe, or really even outside of it. Dom doesn't need to live like this. The story of this movie, if you lay it out bluntly, is about a traditional good guy turning his back on justice and embracing the chaos. A guy who tries to work within the system but is so fucked over by the bureaucracy and the disrespect from the good guys that he can overlook the recklessness and selfishness of the dangerous and destructive criminals he's supposed to stop because those criminals treat him more like a human being than anyone else. It's a movie that blurs the lines of good and evil to the point that nobody even knows that was there at all. Even the cinematography of the film is executed so expertly that few, if any, audiences have ever stopped to recognize how Rob Cohen manipulates us not to see what Brian does at the end as dumb. When we're with the cops, it's still, no music, boring and frustrating, you can't wait to leave. When we're with Dom and the Playtime Posse, it's lively, there's Bonda music playing, cool cars, dynamic shots, laughter, barbecue chicken, beer, it's high energy. This is called making a fucking movie. While many critics, and admittedly myself, wrote this off as eye candy fluff to make teenage boys in the theaters go, heh, hot girls and cool cars. What we are missing is the insight to understand that this is exactly what they want us to do. The core of the movie is the corruption and manipulation of Brian O'Connor. It's about intoxicating him, and that means intoxicating us. A baby movie would have made this explicit. There would have been a realization scene where he spells it out for us. Oh my god, Dom got in my head, he hypnotized me with the premise of the good life. But The Fast and the Furious respects his audience by not telling you what it just did to you. That may sound strange to say as a positive considering the fact that the director has multiple sexual assault allegations to his name, but the fact that almost nobody has ever pointed this aspect of the film out kind of proves to me that it did its job. What Brian does at the end, letting Dom go back into the world he has proven to time and time again he will pillage and lay waste to, is viewed by almost everyone who watched this movie as the noble, honorable thing to do. Many movies and writers have been praised for writing villains that we can empathize with. But few people genuinely think that the Joker is actually the hero or that Zuko really did nothing wrong. Dom tricked the entire world. It's not just Dom though, scenes with Jesse and Mia, the barbecue, building the cars, it all goes a long way to humanize these people and justify what they do and Brian in our eyes. So let's talk about the crew by going over my favorite scene in the movie, the tuna sandwich fight. Think of all the best scenes you've ever seen in a movie. The death of Captain Alex, the end of Wachowski's Speed Racer, that scene in Twister where a Dodge Ram pickup truck drives through a house. All scenes where the director said, hey, fuck everyone who's ever lived, I'm about to sauce out till the ball's out stankin' like sauerkraut. If any of those scenes I mentioned above don't get your dick harder than skee-ball at the armless convention, then I got two words for you. Shut up, nerd. The tuna sandwich fight might not look like it on paper, but it actually does a good-ass job being a good-ass scene. So I'm going to be paraphrasing a lot of what Vic Miller said in his article on this scene, which I'll be linking in the description. I had some different interpretations than him on certain aspects, but don't get it twisted. He's way better at watching movies than me. I thought the scene sucked dick before I read his writings on it. I just don't want anyone watching this to think I'm smart or cool when I'm actually retarded and smell bad. The song Deep Enough by Liv underscores the beginning as Brian pulls up to Toretto's cafe. A converted garage, a symbolic visualization of how the real garage they own is merely a front for what they're really doing. Crime. Just like the garage is visually only a decorative front for the cafe, which is the actual business. But they do also own a garage. The lyrics to the song: "We hit the room, me and my crew, and it was cool, until we bumped into you." Obvious foreshadowing of how Brian's appearance will tear the family apart by the end. Okay, well, actually, he doesn't really, in my opinion. Jesse does far more, but these movies all treat it like he did, so whatever. Now it's been years, but there you were, like a Mustang, redlining every single gear with a man that danced like he was born in 49, but lost his groove back when Jesus died, and I want to know, are those replacement hips? Potentially a reference to Brian's more simple way of life, born in 49 referencing his traditional career as a cop, 1949 of course being a year that was a long time ago. He likes boring sandwiches, tuna, he's got a routine. Simple red Ford Lightning pickup truck, but then a hot white sports car passes behind him. Cool cars are in his background as a character, but also literally in the background of the shot. Does it get any better than that? Is that a Swatch watch? Do you know what time it is? Time to eat a fucking sandwich. Brian enters the building and Mia smiles but quickly turns away to hide it. This shot here is great. The three leads in the movie, all with their backs turned to the camera, hiding their real faces. Dom hiding his criminal lifestyle, Mia hiding her crush on Brian, and Brian hiding that he's an undercover cop.
Every day for the last 3 weeks you've been coming in here and you've been asking me how the tuna is now. It was crappy yesterday, it was crappy the day before, and guess what? Hasn't changed.
I'll have the tuna.
No crust?
No crust.
First off, Brian, solid bit. That's a really funny thing to do. Dom stands up and faces Brian. They stare each other down, not openly, but through a screen door, a filter of their own perspectives. Dom only sees a pretty boy getting too flirty with his sister, somebody who better watch his back. Brian only sees a potential lead on the case, a criminal. The atmosphere shifts with the music. The crew has arrived. The mundanity of the tuna sandwich goes right out the door as we see a series of sports cars pull up to hard-ass music as the cars overshadow Brian's stupid Ford Lightning work truck. Letty steps out. Red car, boss bitch, the car in front. She ranks above these truckle nuts because they clearly drive in a hierarchy formation. Decal of an armored woman, big Super Mario Bros. Movie looking shoes. Then Leon. Yellow car, big sword, average noble knight. Yellow, as you know, is the color of mustard, which traditionally always comes after ketchup. Letty's car is red, and Leon's yellow car comes right after. A subtle nod to hot dogs. In blue comes Vince, but unlike ShamWow, he's not here to wipe up jizz, although he does suck dick. Vince's car is a shark, sniffing for blood in the water, looking for his next kill. And homeboy smells tuna. Then in white comes Jesse, Decal holding a shield and riding a bomb, foreshadowing how he's on a path of destruction to be killed at the end of the movie. Fun fact, Frankie Muniz owned this car for a while. They get out of their cars one by one, Vince yelling at Jesse.
Talk to me, Jesse. This ain't working, brother.
It's your fuel, man. It's got a nasty hole. That's why you're unloading in third.
It's important to recognize that Vince was the third car in line formation, and he gets his fuel for life from insecurity. Jesse and Vince are having a literal conversation about their cars, but a meta conversation about their life philosophy. Jealousy and envy are bad fuels to live life. Nasty hole. Also, outside of this bullshit I'm saying, it's also good for establishing that these people are very knowledgeable about cars, since these words are going to mean nothing to most people. But before Vince can realize what's really going on, he notices Brian's Ford Lightning. Alley Cat came back for some tuna. We don't like alley cats coming around here eating all the good tuna, do we, boys? Time to start some shit. Vince sits down next to Brian and throws the sugar bowl at him. You'll need this, because you ain't getting any sweetness from me, pal. Jesse says,
Ah, he's beautiful.
I like his haircut.
as he puts on a second pair of sunglasses. Brian's too hot for just one pair. Brian feels awkward because why wouldn't he, so he pays and Vince makes one request.
Try Fat Burger from now on. You can get yourself a double cheese with fries for $2.95,
The music timing perfectly with Brian getting shoved in the back and the fight is on. Mia begs Dom to help and we finally hear the first line of this character in the entire series.
What'd you put in that sandwich?
Dom breaks up the fight and informs Brian that he's gonna get him fired from his job.
You work for Harry, right?
Yeah, I just started.
You were just fired.
What is this guy, Twitter user in 2016? Thanks guys, you've been terrific. This scene is a masterclass in subliminal messaging. Not in an evil, buy Pepsi way, but in a way that you can tell what you need to know about the major characters with nothing but blocking, outfits, and a few words of dialogue. I think something else very interesting about this scene is its prophetic nature. Looking back at this scene in retrospect, knowing the modern reputation of the Fast and Furious series, this scene is a look into the future and the subjugation and abuse fans will have to face. The tuna sandwich itself is an allegory for the Fast and Furious as a series. It was crappy yesterday, it was crappy the day before, and guess what? It still sucks. Yet Brian continues to order it every day. Just like us Fast and Furious fans will continue to want more every day. We saunter into Toretto's and say, hit me with another one. Then we go, wow, that sucked, I need 9 more. Vince represents the mainstream attitude. Go to Fat Burger and get yourself a double cheese with fries. Why don't you watch The Lighthouse? Go see the popular movie you're supposed to like. But Brian, just like us, he likes the tuna here. He gets it. He understands it. He likes the handmade feel. He tastes the love in each sandwich. Everyone else might hate it and write it off, but he likes it. It matters to him, damn it.
Come on, let's go! Race war! Race war? Come on, Bill! Race war! What do you mean?
Traditionally, race wars are when ethnic groups decide to stop talking shit and see what's good. But in the Fast and Furious, there's something else completely. Race wars is teased throughout nearly the entire film, always very vaguely, but everyone puts a large level of importance and prestige on the events. It puts delusions of grandeur in our heads of some sort of street race, deathmatch hybrid where the toughest street racers go out into the desert and mount buster swords and cannons to their Land Evos and Dodge Chargers and see who's really about this shit. But it's actually just drag racing, which I guess probably maybe makes more sense. There's a wild scene early on when Brian still gives a shit about the case he's supposed to be cracking, and he sneaks into Hector's garage to see if he's the one stealing all the DVD players because he knows what type of cars were doing it. But unfortunately, Hector was actually serious about going legit earlier in the film before the first race. Do you guys want me to talk about the first race in the movie? The one where Brian pulls up and stands next to his car like he's watching the guy at Subway make his sandwich. It's pretty cool when that guy has PlayStation in his car. Like, that's gotta be the coolest part of the movie if you're 10 years old. Something fun to think about during this race is whether or not Brian lost on purpose or not. Think about it. If he won, then he wouldn't owe Dom a car and have a reason to keep in close contact with him. But then again, he also becomes friends with Dom 5 minutes later for an unrelated reason, saving him from the police. So maybe they still could have been friends, but... Anyway, race wars.
Race war!
Vince and Dom catch Brian sneaking around and demand to know why, suspecting that he's secretly a cop. So Brian's like, check it out, it's like this. I was seeing what they're bringing the race wars. So Dom and Vince say, excellent idea, Brian. Let's go to Johnny Tran's garage now to see what he has. Fuck, I didn't explain who Johnny Tran is. Johnny Tran is this guy. He's the closest thing we have to a villain, I guess. I mean, the real villain of this movie is Dom, or Brian, or Vince, or Mia, or the police, or Panasonic. I don't really know, actually. It's definitely not Hector, though. He can't even pronounce his own last name.
They call me Hector. Got a last name too, but I can't pronounce it, so...
Is the real villain the educational system? Maybe. Johnny Tran is someone who used to work with Dom until Dom slept with Johnny's sister. Now they're enemies who vow to stay out of each other's areas, a rule Brian doesn't know, so they shot at his car with submachine guns. Keep those submachine guns in mind. Tran is just kind of a generic asshole gang leader guy. He demands respect and does fucked up things. Anyway, back at the garage. Brian, Dom, and Vince are forced to hide and watch Tran waterboard some schlub with motor oil for reasons I forget and then leave. But more importantly than this, Brian notices all the DVD player boxes indicating that Johnny's gang stole them and not Dom. So the SWAT team raids Johnny's garage and home, only to determine that he purchased the DVD players legally for reasons never explained. They tell Brian, all we got him on was minor weapons charges. Which, by the way, illegally owning a submachine gun in the state of California could have landed Johnny and nearly his entire gang in prison for years, so I don't know what you mean by all we got him on was minor weapons charges. Also, Brian watched them waterboard a guy with engine oil. Also, the police know about the car they shot. Brian saw them do it. Why did they let this go? This makes no sense. Yeah, but anyway, Race Wars is hyped up for the entire movie, but ultimately, it just seems like they go here to hang out and drag race, which personally, I think is incredibly boring because I'm not there. I'm here on my couch and it smells like hot Doritos. In drag racing, just like regular drag, the goal is to just stay straight. You know, I prefer my races to be full of drifting, Eurobeat, or at the very least a few turns. A straight line is good for raw speed, but at that point the competition is just who has the fastest car. Not that much strategy if you ask me. Unless there's actually a ton of strategy involved in drag, I have no idea. I got all my car knowledge from Initial D and my friends showing me Rally Crash compilations. This is the best sport of all time. Raw speed is cool if you personally spend $80,000 on it and have a history of tuning it up, but in a movie where I know none of the modifications, stats, or anything, because it's actually a crime drama and not a street racing movie, I just see two cars line up and then the water slide attendant tells them to go forward. Which even that would be cool if it mattered at all, but beyond the Jesse man becoming indebted to the Triad, Race Wars is kind of just some weird shit that happens in the movie, probably as an excuse to put even more cool cars in. I have friends who love the scene pretty much only because it's just cars. If you know what you're looking for, cars, so many points in this movie will have you pointing at your screen going, whoa, that's a Supra, Ford Mustang, F-150 Lightning, that's a P90X. But most likely none so much as Race Wars. As far as the plot goes, however, the most important thing that does happen at Race Wars is Jesse betting his car in a race with Johnny Tran, losing and then driving off. Which he never should have done because he knew Johnny had literally 100k worth of modifications in it. Now, I'm not a car guy by any means, but I am very curious how that car possibly could have had $100,000 worth of mods. You know, but then again, Brian's Eclipse was also like $80,000 apparently.
It was an $80,000 vehicle, officer.
So who knows where they're pulling these numbers from. If some grease monkey in the comments could break it down for me, I'd appreciate it. But the real genius of Race Wars is hidden within that pointlessness. In 21 Jump Street, there's a great scene towards the end of the second act when Jonah Hill's character starts talking about applying to colleges, riding this thing out for a while.
You're in too deep, man. Yesterday I found a college application on your desk.
I don't know how long this case is gonna last. And Eric's gonna get into Berkeley, and honestly, I can get in too. Who knows, I could ride this thing out. I could be a doctor or something.
Have you lost your fucking mind?
He's so caught up in this double life that he can't get out of and doesn't want to. The same can be said for Brian and us, getting caught up in a plot that really does not matter. Also, it can rip us back in that panic of, oh shit, we're out of time. Oh, he's undercover. This is like a criminal case. I mean, yeah, Race Wars is where he's gonna repay Dom for the car he owes him, but that doesn't matter because he's supposed to be arresting Dom anyway. And also, we never see him race to make that money back, because the scene really only works if you hyper-analyze it like I am to fit into this immersive narrative argument 8-page shitpost.
I know I've let you down. I've been the fool to myself.
I've already talked about this a decent bit towards the beginning because I'm super good at script structure, but I think it would be weird to not actually talk about it now that we're here. Dom's crew, who did not want to do this heist, has been completely decimated by his reckless plan to rob the semi-truck in broad daylight, completely negating the cars being all black, and it's all thanks to the semi-truck driver having a single shotgun. Brian comes racing in to save the day, save Vince, and get him medical attention at the cost of revealing his true identity to Dom and everyone else. There is a concerted effort from here on, and even in Too Fast and 4 and 5. Sorry, I just have to interrupt for a second. I was putting the Fast 5 poster in here while editing. What is Vin Diesel doing on this poster? Like he's just standing here. He has like no idea what to do with his hands. He's like not doing a cool pose or anything. Like he's just standing here. I mean, everyone looks like they're photoshopped in because they definitely are. This is like actually a fucking horrible poster. But like, yeah, he's really just standing there. Okay, anyway, back to the video. There's a concerted effort to put the blame for ruining everything on Brian. That Brian tore apart the gang at this moment, and it's all because of his lie. But that's total bullshit. Whether Brian went undercover or not, Jesse still would have challenged Johnny Tran, lost and owed him a car that they would kill him over. Dom's crew still would have done this heist, gotten wrecked, Vince probably would have died, and they would have had the split town. But like I keep saying, this movie and even its sequels are manipulative. It wants you to agree that Brian did the right thing in the end to atone for his sins for ruining the good thing they had going. Shooting semi-truck drivers with harpoon guns. After his true identity is revealed, he returns to Dom's home to try and bring him in, but the standoff is interrupted by Jesse finally returning and immediately being gunned down by Johnny Tran and a henchman. Dom and Brian immediately hop into their cars to chase after the two gunmen. Now this chase sequence is sick as fuck. I love the techno music that slowly adds in a cinematic string section, the early 2000s speed blurs, it's great. But I think the pivotal moment comes when Brian finally guns down Johnny. This is presumably the first person Brian has ever killed. Now, sure, he's a cop, he had full legal right to use deadly force against Johnny, but psychologically, that's still a heavy toll, and he didn't just kill Johnny because it was part of his job as a police officer. It was personal. Jesse was his friend, and his bond with Dom's crew is going to be forever part of him because of this spilt blood. Even Dom didn't kill the guy he chased after. Brian is visibly shaken, and what follows is a surreal final race. The two of them have been through hell, loss, and betrayal today and are under insurmountable levels of stress. Dom tells Brian, "This is where I used to race in high school." He's returned to a familiar place that gives him comfort, reminds him of better times, because he knows this could be the last time he ever sees it. Earlier in the movie, Dom says to Brian, "I live my life a quarter mile at a time. For those 10 seconds or less, nothing else matters. I'm free." They agree to race on green. The race begins. There's no music whatsoever, just the sounds of the cars racing mindlessly, as if the last 20 minutes haven't happened, as if they can just ignore what's coming. The reality of their situations, the screeching horn that shatters the illusion and stands to break into Dom's world, the consequences of their actions coming at them like a freight train. The scene slows down. The music comes back and it's menacing, blurry, and disorienting. There's still no dialogue, no cheesy, "Oh, he's lost his mind," or nothing. The two dazed and confused, broken men clutching onto the one thing that brings them joy. Going fast. I can make as many arguments as I want about Dom being a manipulative, narcissistic psychopath who rages through the earth on an endless pilgrimage of mayhem. But that doesn't change how human this scene is. Two men with nothing left, the weight of their actions heavy, uncertain of what the other will do to them or what the future holds, whether or not they'll ever do anything after this. They spend that time, what little they have, doing the only thing each of them love, the only thing they still have in common after everything. They narrowly escape the train. Everything's gonna be alright. Only for Dom to hit a truck pulling out. And what better for Dom to crash into than a semi-truck? A symbol of his greed there at the end to get his revenge after all the times he's raided and sieged them. Hunting semi-trucks allowed him to rise to power. And they were also his downfall. Brian giving Dom the keys to his Supra is possibly the most iconic scene in this series besides
Japanese food is like the army. Don't ask, don't tell.
I don't really know what else I can say about the scene that I haven't already said. At the end of the day, it comes down to your personal morals whether or not you think Brian did the right thing. Whether this story was the rise or fall of Brian O'Connor, the liberation or the degradation. This is the question that we're left with. I mean, there's also the after credit scene where Dom's in Brazil or something, but the Fast and Furious is many things. It's stylish and cool, it's philosophical, it's deceptive at all ends. Just like a car, there's so many intricate moving parts, and to people who don't understand what they're looking at, the complexity is lost on them. I've been through a lot with this movie. I used to be indifferent to it, then I hated it, then I learned to love it. I found meaning in it, an appreciation. It's possibly the greatest piece of abstract filmmaking wearing the costume of a big dumb blockbuster to prove to you that most people can be sold anything as long as there's enough fluff around it to distract you from the real story. It's brilliant. Nothing short of a brilliant movie.